Hey, welcome everyone, and I'd love to introduce our panelists this evening. Also have a very exciting session on academics. Kids generally good study, and hence it's important to figure that out. I know Raghav's smiling, and he's taken a year off from college. Maybe he had enough of academics, but I know you're doing cool stuff. And so Divya is joining too. So welcome, Divya. We have a great panel this evening. So Raghav, why don't you go first? Introduce yourself.
Thanks, Arjun. I'm super excited to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Raaghav. Nice to virtually meet you. I remember that this used to be in person, at least the year that I went, but we're adapting. So I'm a senior at UC Berkeley. I was studying electrical engineering and computer science. I am currently on a gap year, so I'm back in India. I decided to take a time off, just to spend time with family and just get some more experience before getting back to finish my last semester and graduating. It's definitely been like an exciting road. My interest is mainly in product management, so that's what I hope to do after I graduate.
Berkeley, the course load is supposed to be pretty tough, right? And
Yeah,
what was your first year semester like? And do you think entering with credits with IB helped?
Berkeley's definitely got a pretty full course load. Um, if you Google like Berkeley and academics, you'll get a lot of like just scary stories about grade deflation and people like going insane just trying to get a good GPA and everything. Um, I think if someone had told me that it's okay if your GPA tanks a little bit, especially at Berkeley in your first semester, that's all right. Like it doesn't matter. I think anything above like a 3.0 is fantastic. Because coming from India, even though like I had done IB, there was still an adjustment period where I had to not only just do everything myself, because unlike our teachers here, the professors at Berkeley or in university in general are very hands off. They're pretty much like, hey, it's your responsibility to really just further your academics, make your submissions, like work for your grade. So I think knowing that like it's not the easiest thing to like get started at university, um, and that it's normal for it not to feel easy. Like don't. I remember taking it very personally, like, oh, does this mean I just don't belong at Berkeley? And that's imposter syndrome. It's a very real thing that happens. So just know that you're there for a reason and that you're more than capable. The first semester is just something that's like difficult.
Aditya, you next. Many colleges have this general requirements, and then at UC San Diego, with all those now 7 colleges, I believe, they have their own little requirements. But do you think focusing on the major straight up, and in your case, it was very different. So tell us about your journey. Also introduce yourself, and how was it like for you in the first few semesters and figuring out how to sort of manage general requirements or focus on finding what your major could be?
Sure. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining in. Thank you very much, Urgent Sir, for inviting me. My name is Advitya. I recently graduated from UC San Diego, majoring in data science, and I plan to start my full-time job in a week, where I'll be working as a machine learning research engineer at the Nerd AI Research Center at Microsoft, which is located next to MIT. And coming to your questions. So when I entered college, I was a structural engineering major. A little funny story behind it. I applied to UCSD with my major as engineering sciences. I got into UCSD for that major, and 10 days after my admission offer, they canceled that major. And because that was in the structural engineering department, I got structural engineering as my major automatically. So I came to UCSD as that. I took the first class in it. I also ended up performing well in that class, but I didn't really see myself in that field. And I was pretty passionate about math since high school, so I wanted something that revolved around that. And I also wanted some computer science components. So I tried exploring different kinds of CS-oriented majors at UCSD, talked to a lot of people, took a lot of online courses, and data science was this new major that was introduced when I was a freshman. And so I ultimately decided to switch to data science. Related to the aspect of like how college was and how I kind of adapted and adjusted and how I balanced all of those requirements that you mentioned. So my first quarter at UCSD, so UCSD follows a quarter system, 3 quarters in an academic year, and I just tried exploring as much as I could. In my first quarter, when I was a structural engineering major, I just tried to attend like chairman body meetings for as many student organizations as I could, as many engineering organizations as I could, just trying to join their projects, kind of see what those organizations look like, what kinds of projects do they do, what kinds of work do they do, things like that. And after I got to data science, I initially joined a startup because I knew a friend that worked there. So it was all just kind of about sort of exploring the ecosystem around me and sort of looking at the opportunities that exist and trying to be involved in as many of those opportunities as I can, and also trying to boil down to the opportunities that I would want to be more involved in. Related to the academic journey, related to balancing the general education requirements of my residential college or the university and the major requirements of data science. I did get to take a lot of diverse coursework, especially as part of my GE requirements. So it was kind of a way for me to kind of take something outside of my major and not only learn about a wide variety of things at college because I have the freedom to explore whatever I want, but also have the flexibility to explore auxiliary topics that could somehow be related to my major. As an example, I could take things like, let's say, cognitive science, which does have intersections with data science as a field. At the same time, I could even take something like theater, which would be very different from data science, but which would also teach me a lot of soft skills, communication skills, and also were like really fun classes to take. And something outside of my major to also make my academic life a little more interesting as well with a variety of courses. So yeah, it's just about kind of picking and choosing different sets of options that you have, and also trying to just explore what you want. And ultimately, yeah, if you just organize your schedule and things like that, things can fall in place.
Next question to you, Aditya, and I'm so happy to see you. Especially after reading your short bio, I said, okay, wow, this is going to be interesting. So tell me a little bit about, how has it been moving from Sciences and how was the Sciences experience, and then moving on to graduating from Columbia in the pandemic year, and finally landing a very cool job in India. So, and also the follow up, the main question, which is connected to the topic, which is academic life, is college level academic writing is so different from typically what students in India would experience. I know you had a very different experience growing up abroad, but it still could be at a different level for you too. What is it that you found challenging or as a continuation of your experience in high school when it comes to understanding academic writing, research methodologies? And I know you're taking that forward in your career now while working with a very eminent member of parliament. So go ahead, tell us a little bit more about you and the question about academics and writing.
Sure. So, as Arjun said, I went to the Dual BA program between Columbia University and Sciences Po. So, just to explain a little bit about what that is, basically, it's a 4-year program. So, you get in and you do your first 2 years at Sciences Po in France. So, that's the Paris Institute of Political Studies. And then you do your last 2 years of college at Columbia in New York. And at the end of the 4 years, you get a bachelor's degree from each of the institutions. So, it's a full, like, dual bachelor's degree. I graduated just in April, so pretty recently, and I've been working with Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who's a member of parliament in India, as a kind of research and policy aide. So working on issues of policy, research, speech writing, communications. It's a small team, so basically kind of a catch-all job. At Sciences Po, I studied politics and government, and at Columbia, I did a major in political science with a concentration or a minor in English Lit. So obviously, these are two very different systems. You get kind of very deep immersion into two very different styles of learning and styles of teaching. At Sciences Po, you're doing an all-in, very in-depth course on governance, constitutional law, politics, and that kind of thing. Whereas at Columbia, being a US university, there's a ton of academic freedom. So you can literally go from studying politics to studying, like, I don't know, African American studies or music or whatever you want to do. So as Arjun mentioned, I graduated in the midst of the pandemic, obviously. So that was, less than fun in terms of my entire senior year was online, and our graduation, quote unquote, was also a very tragic Zoom session. But apart from that, I stayed in New York, and campus was open and so on, so things weren't as bad as they could have been, perhaps. But to get to the question that Arjun put in terms of academic writing, so it's definitely a big change from high school, or at least it was in my opinion. I also did the IB. I didn't go to school in India. I wasn't at high school in England. But again, IB system, so pretty similar sort of style of writing as anyone else who did that system. It's definitely a big leap. It's in France, for example, they insisted at first, I think they sort of gave up after a while, but they sort of insisted on this particular form of French essay writing called the problématique, which you have to learn the various contours and nuances of that. And then in the US, of course, there's a very specific style of college writing that they like doing, a very argumentative style where you have to prove one point and sort of defend your perspective, which is not really the French system at all. So that change was definitely something I had to adapt to. What I would basically try and make as clear as possible is that there isn't really a right or wrong or good or bad style of writing, academic writing or writing college or writing essays at a university level. There's just the style that your professors and your institution want to see. So what I would really try and make clear to anyone who's struggling, which is really, to be honest, going to be most people because it's such a change from high school in many ways. The biggest piece of advice I would give is to take advantage both of your professor's office hours, because a lot of the time, if you're not able to get that academic writing correct on the first try, which is very likely, there's no better resource than your professors who will be able to explain what kind of thing they want to see, what kind of style of writing they think will be best for you, that kind of thing. Plus, at least at Columbia, there was a thing called the Writing Center, which is literally a free resource for you to walk in and get advice and wisdom on how to write college essays, application essays, CVs, all these kinds of things. And I'm guessing pretty much all universities are going to have that. So academic writing is definitely going to be very different from your high school from your high school essays and your high school papers. But there's a lot of resources on your university campus for sure that you can use to kind of improve and get yourself in the game. So it's not everyone does it, especially at a place like Columbia where everyone is forced to write essays on humanities topics, even if you're doing engineering or anything else. So it's a big jump, but you won't be alone. It's not like being thrown in the deep end at all.
Hey, thanks. It's a great introduction to understanding academic writing and resources available there. So you're never alone. There's always a bunch of advisors who could guide you through your freshman, first year, first semester. Divya, and congratulations. I definitely wanted to perhaps meet you when I was in Bombay, but with the new baby, how's life and everything?
Oh, it's really nice. Thank you. I'm actually camped out in his nursery, which we've appropriated as my startup's office for now. Right. But no, it's been really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I could see. It's lovely. Okay. I know we've talked about this at other panels, and thank you for being generous and joining several of our earlier panels. And I remember visiting Yale and seeing you there as well. But it's been ages now, and I know you've gone ahead and completed your almost full 2 years of an MBA program at Wharton online, unfortunately. But the perk has been, I think, your baby girl or a boy? What is?
I have a baby boy. His name is Kian.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah. Super. Anyways, so moving forward, let me ask you this question about several opportunities, academic research opportunities, which I remember from the time we've been connecting over the past few years, you've been very resourceful in making use of all the connections in terms of what a university has to offer, first at Yale and obviously now at Wharton too. How is it like for you to tell us a little bit about your startup and also the journey? And then the question is, how can students really make the best of work-study opportunities, fund their research, and so on and so forth?
I think that's it's a great question, because I feel like most universities have enough and more resources that, you can kind of start a company, travel the world, learn multiple languages, all of this without paying a penny for it. Some of which I have managed to do, thankfully, because of my time at Yale as well as Wharton. So I'm, happy to share what I know about it. And in terms of who I am, did my undergrad at Yale, went to Wharton after that, did a lot of work in politics and government in the middle, focusing on gender and healthcare. And now I've started up a company called Pinky Promise, which is a reproductive healthcare company. And what it does is it actually uses the world's best clinical protocols to tell you, based on your symptoms in reproductive health, exactly what you're going through. And this cuts down a lot of judgment, social stigma, as well as, I guess, access barriers that women typically face when it comes to talking to a gynecologist. And it gives her own reproductive health in her fingertips. So that's what we're doing. And we're building a community around it. And we started a month ago. So it's been an extremely exciting journey so far. So that's what I do. And then in terms of just research opportunities as well as the journey, I started off, and Arjun remembers this very well. I went into Yale thinking that I was going to major in economics, ended up switching my major multiple times during the course of my studies at Yale. Ended up as an ecology and evolutionary biology major, as well as pre-med, taking a lot of classes at the Yale Medical School. And all my summers, I did a lot of research. So I was published twice in 2 peer-reviewed journals by the time I graduated from Yale. And this was all because of grants and funding that Yale was able to provide me. So the interesting thing that I realized as I did that was that professors are actually very, very much in need of undergraduates who are thoughtful, who are willing to kind of put the time and effort in, and who want to contribute to their ongoing research efforts. Because we actually, interestingly, seem to bring in a lot of we bring a lot of new thought to the table. And a lot of fresh blood and a lot of energy to the table. So, and we're willing to take risks that a lot of PhD students may not necessarily be willing to take risks for, because they may not necessarily get the data out of it, right? And they need that data to complete their master's and their PhD thesis. So we can actually take those risks. I took a risk like that. So I got around $15,000 from Yale in the summer between my junior and my senior year to go to Tanzania and work on interviewing women in red light districts of Dar es Salaam to try and figure out why they were not attending these free HIV prevention and care centers that Yale had actually established in Tanzania, whose success would then determine whether they would do these things in other parts of the world. No PhD student or no master's student was willing to do that, because they were not sure they'll actually get the data, right? Whether women will be able to talk to them, it's a foreign language, all of these things, they were not sure they'll get the data for it. So what they ended up doing is just not doing that research at all. So I kind of signed up for it, got funded, went there, and ended up publishing all of my studies, and then presented it in the UN as well. These are like opportunities that universities actually are just throwing at you. They even paid for my tickets and paid for my hotel stay and all of that when I was presenting. And it was only possible because I was just like, I went up to a professor after a talk and I said, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can I help you out? So you definitely have to put yourself out there, but there's so many research opportunities. It's kind of insane how many there are. And professors are also incentivized, if they're actually having undergraduate students working for them in their research programs, etc. So I would say if you're interested in research, just figure out which professors of interest, write emails, go meet that professor in your office hours, and you're most likely going to be working in that lab. It's that easy. Wharton was also very similar. I used Wharton mostly to kind of launch my startup and get grants to do a lot of market research, to talk to users, to hire technological talent to develop my app, etc. So I was able to get a lot of funds to do that. And so most of the classes that I took were basically directly related to the startup that I was working on. And they were focused on building relationships with professors, who worked at VC funds or who were advising funds, who were, on boards of different healthcare companies, etc. And that too was like super useful for me. So obviously it requires some level of planning. It requires knowing what you want out of where you're going. But beyond that, it also just like put yourself out there. You easily get the opportunities.
Hey, thanks. College can be really exciting, but also overwhelming with all deadlines and finals looming every semester. So the question is figuring out that right balance, work-life balance, work-study life balance, I would say, and the pitfalls of really, not having that mental health equilibrium in place. So yeah, if Divya, you want to go first since I've pinned you already.
Sure. So, work-life balance is difficult. I think that it's important to realize that university is also a place that you go to kind of build your character and build yourself, build relationships forever. Thinking back, I've been out of Yale, like I graduated in 2014. So I've been out of Yale for a while now. And honestly, the thing that I carry most dear with me is the relationships I built with people. Now, if I go to any country in the world, literally, I'll have someone who went to school with me or who I know from college who I can just stay with or something like that. So it's a beautiful thing to have. But obviously, it takes a lot of effort to ace your classes and do well in all your classes, take tough classes as well, and then have time for your social life, rush this society, that society, be a part of all these organizations, and then also figure out what you're doing for the summer. It can certainly get overwhelming when we think of it that way. But, my suggestion would actually just be to slow down. Your first semester and your first year is most likely going to be a lot of learning, right? So don't try and go in there. Like, for example, at Yale, we were advised to take 4.5 credits. So each class was 1 credit and some classes were half, like lab classes, for example. So we were actually advised to take 4.5 and I only took 4.5. I had friends, for example, who were taking 6 and all that because they were like, hey, I'm here, I'm going to like max out on my experience. But I only took 4.5 because my freshman counselor told me that and I was like, okay, fine, that's it. So I had obviously time to go for various extracurricular activities and fairs and things like that, and also spend some time over the weekends, have fun with my friends, travel. And a lot of my friends who were obviously taking 6 classes because it's a lot, you're learning so much, you're also in a completely new environment, were definitely feeling the stress of it. So I would say, don't stress yourself out too much academically your first couple of semesters. Take it easy so that you kind of figure things out. I think Aditya had a really good point about how college writing is going to be different. Like I came from a CBSE school system, so I had written like a letter to the editor maximum before going to Yale. So it was quite the jump for me, honestly. And so I was basically camped at the writing center. And I did take more writing classes than one my first semester so that I would kind of get that GPA hit all at once, right? Get that horrible GPA my first semester and then be like, okay, fine, I survived that. And now I know how to write. So now I'm going to take more writing classes. It was actually interesting. I took a lot of humanities classes. So I would say take it easy, figure out your learning objectives, do that. And definitely like, don't overload yourself even from an extracurricular standpoint. Most universities have these extracurricular fairs and you're like basically signing up on every single mailing list, from the juggling society to like an a cappella group to like whatever it may be. You're signing on all of them, right? It can actually get stressful if you have like 300 different emails in your inbox the next day. So definitely kind of make sure that you're pacing out your activities slowly, figuring out which extracurriculars you want to be on as well, kind of planning it before going. It's always super helpful. And then I think finally, you're in an environment where everyone is actually trying to prove something to someone, right? So everyone's gonna obviously take it upon themselves to basically take it upon themselves to excel and paint a picture of success at all points of time. But I would say if you're a good friend and you're reaching out to your friends, you'd actually realize that they're also human. They're also kind of stressed out about things maybe before finals, etc. So invest in relationships and friendships early on. Try and make friends so that when you need them, they're there for you. And honestly, that's the best part of college. And I'm sure Aditya, and Raaghav have the same thing to say about friends that you make in college.
Hey, thanks. That's wonderfully said. It's really about the friendships and kind of these last lifetime. So, Raghav, I know you were itching to say something. I saw you nodding and agreeing to what Divya was saying. So, over to
Yeah.
you. If there's anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think just like plus one to that, I think it's very important to just create a balance between, your academics and non-academic activities, whether that be extracurriculars or just social things that you do with your friends. I think it's very important to know that yes, to you're going outside India to study, but you're also going for a lot of other things. You're going for getting exposure to a lot of different cultures. You're going to build these important relationships, like Divya said. They're going to last you a lifetime, and that's so true. I think I've been away from college for 6 months now, but there hasn't been a single day that goes by where I haven't spoken to a different person every single day. So it's definitely like super important to do that. The way I did that was I made sure like no matter what I have going on and no matter how stressed I am, to try and keep every Saturday free for myself. And that would mean that I would either go like just hiking with my friends in the morning, or we'd go like drive to like the beach nearby, or we'd go out for like a dinner or to a bar Saturday night or something like that. Just like make sure like you have some time in the week that you set aside for yourself where you're able to take some time away from all the commitments that you have. Because yes, you have academic commitments, and then when you sort of join student organizations, and then you sort of climb up that leadership ladder as well in those organizations, that also becomes like 10 other things you have to do. So make sure that you just like take time for yourself. I think that's like the most important thing that I'll say.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. This panel has been amazing. I could go on for another hour. But we have the lounge. So I'm just going to plug in the lounge every time. So there are tables marked with majors, or you can just hop on and hop off to meet different people you might know of already or know already. Uh, and so Aditya, Advitya, Divya, Raghav, do spend more time connecting with the students here. It'll be just fantastic to also see you in another 25 minutes when I finish the next panel. So thank you again. Bye.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to hang out in the lounge for a little bit. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Bye.